Babel and the bricks of ego. What are building? A monument to self or a life that points to God? Welcome in, brilliant builders, to better things. It's Cataline again, your over-caffeinated host here on the Rabbit Hole Diaries, where we climb theoretical ladders, dig into dusty scrolls, and occasionally build entire conspiracy theories out of Hebrew wordplay and spiritual symbolism. Today's episode, we're traveling back to one of the strangest architectural disasters in the Bible, the Tower of Babel. What happens when humanity gets too bold, too unified, and way too into their own greatness? Spoiler alert, God gets involved, and the blueprints are never the same. The story, bricks, pride, and a holy disruption. Let's take a scroll down memory lane of Genesis 11 verse 1 through 9. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. Genesis 11:1. Sounds ideal, right? No Google Translate needed. Unity, check. Efficiency, check. Ego, double check. So the people said, "Come, let's build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves." Genesis 11 verse 4. There it is, the red flag. This wasn't about connection. It was about control. It wasn't about reaching God. It was about replacing Him. They weren't building worship. They were building ego with bricks. Let's talk bricks. Now here's a fascinating nugget. They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Genesis 11 verse 3. That might seem like a throwaway line, but it's rich with meaning. In ancient times, stone were God-made, natural, uniquely shaped. Bricks, on the other hand, were man-made, uniform, controlled, processed. So instead of building with what God created, they manufactured their own materials, literally stacking sameness to reach divinity. Translation: they chose human effort over divine design. Artificial over authentic. Control over trust. Sound familiar? When God hits the brakes, God comes down, which is always kind of funny. Like, oh, y'all building something? Let me just stoop down real quick and see. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. Genesis 11 verse 5. And He basically says, if they can do this unified in pride, what else will they try without me? Paraphrase of Genesis 11 verse 6. So He confuses their language. Suddenly, the workers can't understand each other. Chaos breaks out. The building stops. The tower stands incomplete. Like a divine monument to the danger of misaligned unity. Babel means confusion, but also a warning. The word Babel literally means confused. It's where we get babble from. But this story isn't just about speech, it's about ambition without surrender. When we build without God, we build confusion. When we reach for heavens without humanity, we fall into pride. And pride, like a leaning tower, eventually crumbles under its own weight. The deeper lesson: what are you building? You don't need bricks or mortar to build your own Babel. Sometimes it looks like hustling for recognition instead of purpose, creating a perfect image, but neglecting your soul. Obsessing over influence, status, or making a name. God is an anti-ambition. He wants to be the foundation, not an afterthought. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Psalms 127 verse 1. The real question is, are you building a kingdom or just a platform? Are your plans made with God or just for Him to bless later? Psychology nerd moment. The ego is a tower too. In psychology, the ego is often your self-constructed identity, how you define yourself apart from others. But when the ego gets inflated, you start building mental towers, defensive walls, image management, people-pleasing structures. And just like Babel, those towers isolate you instead of elevate you. Because we were never meant to climb above each other. We were meant to walk with each other and with God. New tongues, new purpose. Now here's a redemption arc. Babel scattered people by confusing tongues. But fast forward to the New Testament, Acts 2, the day of the Pentecost, and God does something wild. He gives people the ability to speak in other tongues, but this time, each one heard their own language being spoken. Acts 2 verse 6. Unity returns through the Holy Spirit, not human pride. God restores what was once confused by only when people are gathered in worship, not ambition. That's powerful. From Babel to blessing. Whether you're stacking bricks or breaking down old towers, remember, God is not afraid of your ambition. He just wants to anchor it in Him. So go build, dream big, but let the blueprint be soaked in grace, not ego. Humble yourself before the Lord, and He will lift you up. James 4, verse 10. Shiny distractions and the golden detour. What are you worshiping when God feels silent? Today we're cracking open one of the most chaotic, glittery golden disasters in the Old Testament. The golden calf. Because sometimes even God's people get impatient. Even believers get distracted. And even we start worshiping stuff we made with our own hands. So let's talk about idols, impatience, and what happens when we try to DIY divine timing. The story. Waiting on God, or not. Let's rewind to Exodus 32. God's people had just escaped Egypt, crossed the Red Sea, and were now camping at the base of Mount Sinai. While Moses went up to meet God, fire, clouds, thunder, it was cinematic. But Moses was gone a little too long for their liking. When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, "Come make us gods who will go before us." Exodus 32 verse 1. Y'all, they literally saw God part the sea weeks ago. But now, they're bored, anxious, spiritually twitchy, so they panic and melt down their jewelry. He took what they handed him and made it into an idol case in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. And then the real kicker. They worshipped it. Why a calf? A golden calf might seem random, but not in that culture. In Egypt, bulls represented strength, fertility, and false gods like Apis. It was familiar, comfortable, visually impressive. When God felt distant, they reached for what they already knew. Ever done that? When God's quiet, we go back to old habits, pick up our own plans again, grabbing that shiny thing instead of waiting for the sacred thing. We all have golden calves. We just call them other names. God doesn't compete for your attention. God sees a whole golden mess and tells Moses, "They have been quick to turn away from what I commanded them." Exodus 32 verse 8. Keyword: quick. We're quick to trust things we can see, slow to trust the God we can't. But here's the hard truth. God won't compete with your idol. He'll break it, expose it, and let it fail. Because he loves you too much to let you worship a lie. Psychology break. The idle brain. In psychology, we call this attachment substitution. When our primary source of safety or purpose feels absent, we replace it with something tangible, even if it's toxic. But that thing, it can't love you back. It can't lead you forward. It can't carry your soul. Idols always demand more, but give you less. Why do we do this? Because waiting is uncomfortable. Because control feels safer than trust. Because we don't see God moving. It's easy to think he isn't, but he is. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul who seeks him. Lamentations 3 verse 25. You don't have to make a golden backup plan. You just have to wait with a heart still turned toward him. The cost of a shiny shortcut back to the foot of the mountain. People are throwing a full-on festival. Dancing, singing, it's a glittery mess. Moses comes down, sees the calf, and breaks the tablets, the very commandments God gave us. What happens when we idolize our own creations? We lose the beauty of what God was actually trying to give. That's the price of impatience. Episode title: Salt's Regret and the Backward Glance. Sometimes what we miss wasn't meant to follow you into freedom. Today's topic: the salty tale of Lot's wife. Yes, the unnamed woman turned into a pillar of salt for doing something that almost all of us do daily: looking back. Let's tumble into this one, shall we? The setup: fire, warnings, and one rule. You'll find this fiery story in Genesis 19. God is about to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, two cities known for their utter collapse of morality, justice, and mercy. Think a spiritual freefall. But Lot, Abraham's nephew, has been shown mercy. Two angels come knocking like heavenly firefighters. Flee for your lives. Don't look back and don't stop anywhere in plain. Flee to the mountains or you will be swept away. Genesis 19 verse 17. Clear instructions. Run. Don't look back. Don't stop. But in verse 26, something heartbreaking happens. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Genesis 19, verse 26. Phew, that's heavy. But hold on, it's not about punishment. It's about attachment. About hearts still tethered to the very thing God was rescuing them from. Psychology break. Why we look back. In human behavior, we call this nostalgic attachment. Our brains romanticize the past when the future feels uncertain, even if that past was toxic. Lot's wife wasn't just being curious, she was mourning a lifestyle, longing for what once was, grieving the loss of normal, even if normal wasn't safe. Why salt? Salt preserves, it stops decay. So when she turned around, when she clung to what God was trying to deliver her from, she literally froze in time. A warning written in minerals. Her story became a monument, not a rebellion, but to regret. Jesus himself later said, "Remember Lot's wife," Luke 17 verse 32. Not as a scare tactic, but as a signpost. Don't let longing for the past rob you of the future. What are we still looking back at? Sometimes we treat our old wounds like windows, peeking in, poking around, daydreaming about what could have been. But beloved, you cannot heal forward while living backward. Ask yourself, are you holding on to something that God already freed you from? Are you dragging shame that God has already buried? Are you replaying what broke you instead of walking toward what could bless you? You don't need to turn to salt to get the message. You just need to stop glancing behind you. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Isaiah 43 verse 18 through 19. The fire wasn't yours to carry. Lot's wife may have feared what was ahead, but the truth is, God wasn't just removing them from destruction. He was inviting them into destiny. And what you have to understand is, sometimes the fire behind you isn't punishment, it's protection. It's the burning down of places that can't carry your calling. Rabbit hole reflection. If you've been staring at the door that closed, wondering why it slams so loud, if you've been counting the used to be's instead of opening up to the could be's, let me remind you, you are not called to be monuments of pain. You were not made to be frozen in what didn't work. You were made to move forward in freedom, because looking back will always cost more than letting go. God's mercy is forward moving. Lot and his daughters kept walking. The future wasn't clear, the loss was real, but God still had plans. Even after destruction, there was grace, rescue. That's who he is. Because that is who he is. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Lamentations 3 verse 22 through 23. You don't have to earn a second chance. You just have to stop looking back at the first one. No more salt statues. That's all for this spiral down sacred memory lane. This has been your girl Cataline, reminding you that your past may be a part of your story, but it's not your statue. Let it go, let it burn, let it bless you only in the lessons it left behind. And then, walk forward, because freedom is still waiting on the other side of your obedience. Until next time, stay soft, stay curious, and for the love of new beginnings, don't look back.